What's up, White Sox fans? Okay, I guess not the win percentage, unfortunately. This video is coming to you a day later than I expected, but it's been a wild, weird weekend. But I'm happy to finally do a recap of what's gone on so far in baseball. Moving forward, we will have weekly recaps, kind of like we were doing with the weekly check-ins on during spring training. But we will be looking at what's been going on in the world of the White Sox each weekend. We'll have some other videos throughout the week, but the weekend recaps will be kind of like a This Week in White Sox Baseball, if you will. Is This Week in Baseball even still a thing? Or am I just showing my age a little bit? But we will talk about primarily White Sox, of course. Always, it's going to be very, very focused on the White Sox. But we obviously have to check in on what's going on around the league, the big stories, and primarily what's going on within our division. So at a glance, the White Sox, after 9 completed games, and as I'm recording this, the White Sox are playing on Monday. So whatever happens in today's game, you know it and I don't yet. But at this point, the White Sox, I think the biggest Achilles heel for the White Sox right now, is we're sporting a record of 4-5, one game under 500. Is that there has been no clutch hitting. If a runner gets on base, it seems like maybe another single will happen, maybe a walk, but then that big hit to break the inning open just doesn't happen. The caveat that has to go with every statistic I'm going to talk about today is that yes, we are only looking at 9 games. It is a very long season. There's a lot left to be played, but these are the funks that we want to get out of, because unfortunately there's not a lot to celebrate on the offensive side. Pitching has been really great overall, but offensively, the White Sox on average have left almost 18 runners on base per game. I think maybe the only thing more amazing than that is that we are not last place in all of baseball. And oddly enough, the team that is last place on that category are the LA Dodgers, who have left almost 19 people on base per game. The upside of that same statistic is, well, that means we are actually getting guys on base. The White Sox have been very good at taking walks, kind of surprisingly good at getting on base via walk. The hitting hasn't been terrible. It just hasn't come when we've needed it. When it comes to leaving runners in scoring position, the White Sox are second to worst. Again, only beat by the Dodgers. And actually, we're tied with Philadelphia, Tampa, the Mets. So that is the plus minus of it, in that we're getting guys on base. The big hit just doesn't come when it matters most. Now, I was thinking, are the White Sox striking out a lot? Sometimes it feels like they strike out a bit too much, but they're actually just 23rd place out of 30, so they're really good on that. And when it comes to walks, the White Sox are actually in first place, with a walk coming in about 13.5% of all at-bats. So that's a great ratio. Fairly low strikeout percentage and very high walk percentage. And it really feels like the White Sox haven't been hitting with all that much power, but the Sox are still 9th place in all of baseball when it comes to on-base plus slugging. I think a lot of that is buoyed by the fact that we're taking all those walks, so the on-base percentage is very high. Of course, the other big bad is that our defense has been like Swiss cheese at some times, and unfortunately those errors have come at really costly times, not just insignificant parts of the game. Whether it's Luis taking a pop-up to the head in Anaheim, I still have no idea how in the world that happened. Or Garrett Crochet not being able to throw home in the 10th inning of a game yesterday. The errors have been very costly. The White Sox have given up 7 unearned runs in 9 games, so almost 1 gift run per game. Adam Eaton is the only player with multiple errors to his credit, and to be honest with you, one of those is such a tough luck error, a ball that he threw and hit the pitcher's mound and took a weird bounce. That said, though, that's obviously something that outfielders have to contend with. As I mentioned, the pitching has been pretty good. Starting pitching has been solid, especially as these guys are building up their stamina and able to go later in the game. Not everybody can beat Lance Lynn, but oh man, if only we did have a team full of Lance Lynns. But Giolito has been good. Cease has been really quite good as well. I'm very happy with what I'm seeing, both from the bullpen and the starting rotation. Liam Hendriks is not lights out. He is not the reliever of the year that we expected. It is a small sample size. I think he'll bounce back. I think we'll be fine, but it is still upsetting to see him give up a lead. This is the exact reason we have him on the team, is to finish out games. And I do have to say, I've had issues with some of Tony La Russa's calls, both in keeping players in too long or who he's bringing in when. I'm going to keep all that annoyance, complaining to Twitter. It seems like that's the right place for that kind of a thing. Thank you, everybody, by the way, who has started to follow me over on Twitter. There's been quite a lot of you that have teamed up over there. And after we've seen them now in Anaheim, and then up in Seattle, and then back home to open up the homestand against Kansas City. Really just have to give props to the Angels. They are a team that I think still has their issues, their negatives, but man alive, Jared Walsh is for real. He really came out so strong in 2020 in that small sample size, and he looks like he's ready to do the packing for Albert Pujols and not allow him to play first base at all this year. Jose Iglesias, we knew that he was going to have a good glove. I didn't expect him to have as much of a bat as he has. There are some unsung players over on that Angels team. They just lost Anthony Rendon to the injured list just for 10 days, though. As you know, I don't like to go into the world of the negative, but you have to acknowledge when things aren't going right and what it is that's going wrong. They finished the road trip with a record of 3-4. And as we set out, I was hoping the White Sox would come back with a record of 4-3. So just a one-game swing. Really, if you can play about 500 baseball on the road and then do well at home, you are a playoff team. Another one of these stats that has both a good and a bad to it. The good is we've held a lead in every single game this year. Of course, that also means that we have blown 5 games that we could have won had we just held on to the lead. But the fact is that we are getting on base, and even though the clutch hitting isn't there yet, and our big hitters are not hitting yet, that said, we're still scoring runs and having a lead at some point in the game, each and every game. And you look at all the games this year, either the White Sox have won really big and it's been a blowout, a very comfortable, fun game, or the White Sox just didn't tack on runs and let it slip away. So right now, we actually have a run differential of plus 11. So in just 9 games, we've scored 11 more runs than we've allowed. Unfortunately, we have a losing record to show for it. Of course, some of the other positives, just can't say enough about Yermin Mercedes. Last week, I put out a video kind of celebrating him, but he has continued to impress. And maybe one of my favorite moments of the season so far is how long did it take for Yermin to get in the record books once he got to Chicago? 1 at bat. He hit the 3rd longest White Sox home run ever hit in our home stadium, and that was an absolute bomb after we saw Yoan Moncada hit his first home run of the year. And of course, in addition to the starting pitching, Michael Kopech has been just absolutely lights out. There's been a lot of good performers in our bullpen. I think Matt Foster has been misused. I think he's going to bounce back. He was one of my favorite relievers to watch last year. Cody Hoyer has looked very good. And again, the greatest news is even though it feels like the White Sox are having a terrible start to the year, because again, 5 losses that were all preventable. That's what makes this tough to swallow. The White Sox have the same record as the Toronto Blue Jays right now. They are a team that many are picking to make it into the playoffs. They've got the same record as the Atlanta Braves, a team that I'm picking to win the NL East. We've got the same record as the New York Yankees, a team that most people are picking to go to the World Series. Really, we are right in the middle of the pack. Nobody in our division so far is just running away with it. Again, it's such a short sample size. Early results get very much blown out of proportion. At the same time, I get it. You want to see your team just come out and go 10 for 10 to open the season, but it just really doesn't work out that way. Didn't work out that way for anybody. In pitching news, the White Sox staff is near the bottom when it comes to home runs allowed per 9 innings, which is definitely a great thing. Less than 1 home run allowed per 9 innings. They are right in the middle of the pack when it comes to walks allowed, and they're in second place when it comes to strikeouts. So again, a really good ratio. Both our hitters and pitchers have really good ratios when it comes to strikeouts versus walks. Taking a look at the week ahead, the White Sox are continuing their homestand with a 4-game set at home against Cleveland. Carlos Rodon was supposed to go today, but he's got a stomach issue. I really wanted to see if he could build on his tremendous spring and great start to the season, so hopefully he gets better really soon. It's possible that he'll pitch on the 14th or 15th. And then the White Sox will head out to the East Coast to play against the Boston Red Sox, who Boston has gotten off to a good start on the season so far. That set in Boston is going to go 4 games before the White Sox then travel to Cleveland before their next day off on the 22nd. A stretch of 11 games in 11 days. When I started my weekly injury check-in in spring training, I really thought that was something that was going to only exist in spring training. As people are getting up to speed, and you do get more injuries in spring training than the regular season, but wow, the White Sox training staff has been busy, unfortunately. But first, we'll start with good news. The whole team and anybody that travels with the team got the 1 shot and you're done Johnson & Johnson vaccine last Thursday before their day off, which then became the next day was a rained out game. So if any of these players had any side effects from the vaccine, ideally they should have gotten through them and are fully healthy again by now. I've been seeing more and more cases of teams putting guys on the COVID injury list, the COVID list, not because they have COVID, but because they are dealing with vaccine side effects. Fortunately, the White Sox did this very smart, and we likely won't have to lose any players for that reason. Billy Hamilton has gone down with a hamstring injury, which was sustained as he was stealing third base in a game a few days back, which makes me have to ask, is left field haunted? First we lose Eloy, then Adam Engel. Billy Hamilton was probably not going to be able to make the team, except that these injuries happen, and then he takes over left field, and then he goes down, and Nick Williams has to get called up. Another guy who seems so far away from getting any major league time. Thank goodness we have this depth. Not that Nick Williams is anywhere near as good as Engel or Eloy. Of course not Eloy. But he's at least a serviceable replacement level player for us. Speaking of curses, here's a segue. I just put out a podcast over the weekend where my friend Max Tim and we interview a couple of guys who wrote a couple of different books on haunted baseball. And of course, baseball is such a world of curses and superstitions. These guys were able to interview literally hundreds of baseball players, active players, retired players from all teams. We spent a lot of time talking about different superstitions that are observed within the game. Baseball is such a huge cultural melting pot. We have players from all over Latin America and Cuba and Asia. So we talk about some of the different traditions and superstitions that have been brought in from other countries. It's a really fun one. You don't have to be into ghost stories to enjoy this. You just have to be a baseball fan, I would say. The link to that is in the description. The podcast is called the Fantastic Story Society. It's usually not a baseball related podcast, which is why I don't talk about it here. But if you're into those kind of stories, I hope you do enjoy and check out that podcast. Tim Anderson, he is scheduled to rejoin the team on Thursday. His return should be a nice big boost, hopefully a spark. He provides so much with the bat, with his speed. Having him back active in the lineup and leading off games, such a big part of what he brings is the fact that he gets the team started off right. Here's the question though. When Tim Anderson comes back, who gets sent down? Now, I do admit that Danny Mendick is the most likely candidate to be sent down, but at a time the White Sox are having a tough time getting offense going, do we really want to send down, and again, it's a 4-game sample size, but do we really want to send down a guy who's batting .500 with an on-base plus slugging nearly 1,200? In just 4 games, he has 4 hits and 4 walks. He is just seeing the ball really well right now. I would hate to lose his bat. On the other side of the coin, and I'm not sure, I don't think the White Sox would be able to just send him down. We might have to try to pass him through waivers, which maybe that would be possible. Larry Garcia. Now, he did have a really nice RBI double yesterday, but still on the season, over 7 games, 25 at-bats. He's only hitting 120 with an on-base plus slugging of 280. Miserably bad numbers. And he also has 9 strikeouts to go against 0 walks. I love the versatility that he brings. He can play every position. He's got good speed. He usually does have a good bat. Not maybe a big power hitter, but a guy that can get on base. For whatever reason, it's just not happening right now. The only other injury update we've gotten recently is that Adam Engel is not expected to be back until after the next road trip, but hopefully he is fully ready to go by then. At that point, we'll be sending Nick Williams down. Now here's a question for you. What is your favorite moment of the White Sox season so far? Some ideas. You don't have to pick from one of these. It's not a poll, but to me, they're the ones that stand out. As I mentioned earlier, the Yermin Mercedes home run. Let's take his 8 for 8 off the table. That's just too obvious an answer. So avoiding that, what are your favorite moments from the beginning of the season? Is it his long home run in his first at-bat in Chicago? Was it Lance Lynn's opening day shutout? Or maybe it was one of Jose Abreu's grand slams. We haven't really seen a great defensive play yet. We're going to see the Panther on the prowl out there in center field, but nothing has really come out yet. We haven't seen Adam Eaton rob a home run or throw out a base runner, but those things will happen also. I'm looking forward to them. But what is your favorite highlight so far of the season? Taking a quick moment to just look around baseball and cover some of the bigger stories in the game. This is all sorts of suspicious. One of the last videos I did, I talked about the fact that Major League Baseball is going to be looking at testing baseballs that were removed from play to see if pitchers are doctoring the ball. I've been watching closely, trying to observe, are pitchers still going to the brim of their hat in some suspicious ways? And they are. It seems like it's business as usual for baseball. We really just hadn't heard very much about what's going on within that story until news broke just a few days ago that Major League Baseball is currently testing a number of suspicious balls that were thrown by Trevor Bauer. I don't think you have to be a conspiracy theorist to see that Major League Baseball doesn't like what Trevor Bauer has been up to. He was the guy that for the longest time was trying to very publicly tell the league, hey, this is something that you need to look into. Please look into it. Look into it. It really goes on and on about him publicly calling out pitchers that he suspected of cheating the most. Of course, Garrett Cole being on the top of that list. And then after a year or two of the league not doing anything about it, he said, well, if you can't beat him, join him. And he developed his own sticky formula that he could use on his pitches. This was all very out in the public eye. And of course, he became this elite player. We saw his spin rate absolutely explode the last couple of years, which of course led to this huge contract that he currently has. And wouldn't you know it, Major League Baseball now is saying, hey, we think you might be cheating. I really do think just about everybody else, everybody that had been doctoring their pitches in the past, I think they still are. But Major League Baseball is calling out Trevor Bauer specifically. We will see how this soap opera plays out, but it is too weird and intriguing not to pay any attention to. On the positive side of pitching, Joe Musgrove, this kid who grew up in San Diego, idolized Jake Peavy, ends up getting to the major leagues. He pitches for the Pittsburgh Pirates, the worst team in baseball. And boy, how lucky. He gets traded from the worst team in baseball to where? To the San Diego Padres, his hometown, his childhood team. And what happened recently? He threw the first ever no-hitter in San Diego Padres history. One of the really great feel-good stories of the baseball season so far. So congrats to Joe Musgrove. I love to see things like that happen. We are still at what I hope is the tail end of this pandemic, so we do have some more COVID notes. The first Washington Nationals series was completely postponed in full because of an outbreak on the team. They had a couple of players that stayed on the COVID injured list for a long time that just got activated today. I believe only one player is still on that list, and that was John Lester. And when he is activated again, he's going to have to go down to a training site to regain his arm strength that's lost because he hasn't been able to throw in quite a while. Breaking news just coming out within an hour of me beginning to record this. There's an outbreak on the north side of Chicago. 3 Cubs players so far have tested positive. They are all relief pitchers for the Cubs. Hopefully the spread does not go anywhere beyond those 3. And this has got to be so infuriating and frustrating for players to get COVID now, so close to the end when everybody's getting their vaccines. The White Sox, of course, are not the only team that have to deal with some injuries. There are some stars out from a lot of teams right now. The offensive star for the San Diego Padres, Fernando Tatis Jr., has gone down with a partially torn labrum. He is on the 10-day injured list and expected to just miss the minimum time. It is a partial tear. He doesn't need surgery. I don't know if it's fair to say a ticking time bomb situation, because it's very possible he plays for many more years without needing to address this issue. But at the same time, it could tear more, and he's back on the injured list. This is unfortunately a wait-and-see thing, and you just kind of never know. Just like any other injury, you just never know if it's going to happen again, if it's going to get worse. He is a very, very, very important part of that team. The Padres have continued to play well even without him. They are a good team overall, but he is, without question, the face of the franchise, a leader of that team. The Dodgers are missing a couple of their team leaders as well. Cody Bellinger's on the 10-day injured list. Mookie Betts has missed some games due to back issues. We saw James Paxton leave a game in Seattle, and it turns out he likely needs Tommy John surgery. He's still going around getting second opinions, but it's not looking good for him. Perhaps no team has been hit harder than the Toronto Blue Jays, who have not seen George Springer yet. He's dealing with an oblique injury at first, and as he's been training to get back into shape, he pulled a quad muscle. So he is an injury on top of an injury. He, of course, was the most expensive free agent of the last class, this last offseason, $150 million contract, and he has yet to suit up for Toronto. The other big acquisition for the Blue Jays was Kirby Yates. He's supposed to be their closer, but he is going down with Tommy John surgery, so he will miss the entire season as well. And I just have to say, I've got to put it out there when I'm wrong. I was pushing very hard for the White Sox to sign Kirby Yates. Thank goodness the White Sox were not watching my Twitter feed as I was over and over again saying sign Yates. Or some of the other backup options I gave them, Archie Bradley Jr. or Trevor Rosenthal, all of whom are on the injured list. Rosenthal will be missing probably the rest of the season. Another star missing, Christian Yelich, is not on an injured list, but he's been missing some time due to back issues for the Brewers. It did not take long for Josh Donaldson to go down with injury again. You never like to see any player go down with an injury, and Josh Donaldson was one of my favorite players to watch for a long time before he ended up on Minnesota, and I was bummed when he landed on Minnesota. He is a guy that has game-changing potential in his bat anytime he's up to bat. He has been dealing with injuries for the last several years, missing substantial time. Miguel Cabrera is also on the 10-day injured list, and Adalberto Mondesi for Kansas City, and he is an important piece of that team. Certainly not somebody that has the home run power of a Jorge Soler, but what he can do on the base paths is really take the focus from a pitcher and just wreak havoc out there. I will do weekly power ranking check-ins just within our division itself. The Twins are the highest ranked team. They went from a ranking of number 4 to 6 via ESPN, and oddly enough, 6 up to 4 for MLB. The White Sox are in second place. ESPN initially had the White Sox ranked 7th, and they dropped the Sox all the way down to 12th. MLB was a bit more bullish on the White Sox, starting them out at 5th place and dropping them just to 7th. And you can see how the rest of the division plays out. Since it's so early in the season, it doesn't really make sense to put the standings under the microscope, but something I do find interesting is to take a look at the playoff odds for each team and how much they've changed since the beginning of the season. And in the future, I'll just be reflecting on the last week, who has made the biggest changes both negatively and positively. So if a team's number hasn't changed very much, you won't hear me talk about them at all. The NL West is a great example where the Dodgers and Padres are still right at the top of the ceiling, near 100%, and everybody else is right at the bottom, near 0%. That's unchanged. Kind of boring. So I'm just going to talk about the teams that have had notable percentage changes of their playoff odds. And this is going to evolve throughout the entire season. Starting in the National League Central, both the Reds and the Cubs started out at somewhere around a 23% chance to make the playoffs. And just looking back from opening day till today, Cincinnati has done very well for itself, up to about 37%, whereas the Cubs offense has still not come around. They've got too much talent in those bats. They will start to hit, but it is crazy how poorly they're doing so far. Their odds have dropped from, again, about 23% down to about 12.5%. In the American League West, similarly, the Angels and A's started off kind of near each other, anywhere from 30 to 40% chance to make the playoffs. The Angels, as we know, they're playing well. They are up to about 57%, whereas the A's have plummeted. They are just at 12%. In fairness to them, they started off with a very tough schedule. Things have been a bit chaotic in the American League East to start. The Blue Jays were favored over 50% chance to make the playoffs, and they are down a bit to 43.5%. The Red Sox were probably around 33% chance, but they've gone up and are actually right tied with the Blue Jays right now for playoff odds. Meanwhile, I thought the Rays were being very disrespected when they were given just about a 25% chance to make the playoffs, and they've actually gone down from there to 18.5%. And of course, we will look at the American League Central, even though these numbers aren't very much changed. Minnesota, the White Sox, and Cleveland all kind of running parallel to one another. Twins are just about where they were when they started. The White Sox have gone up a tiny bit, and Cleveland has made the most progress out of these three. Okay, one last optimistic stat to look at before I sign off for this video, and it's going to start with a very pessimistic stat. Because it's the reality. The reality is not very bright. On-base percentage plus slugging percentage, OPS, is my favorite at-a-glance stat to look at to say, hey, how's this guy doing this year? And you expect an all-star to be around maybe 825 to 850, definitely at 800 or more. The White Sox have the potential to have a whole bunch of guys in the lineup at the same time with an on-base plus slugging over 800. Of our typical starters, which I know the lineup is changing a lot from day to day right now as we're settling in, how many of our starters do you think have an on-base plus slugging over 800? That number's 2. Of course, it's Yermin Mercedes, who is still just torching the ball. He's got a 1,451 on base plus slugging as I'm recording this. The second player on this list is Yasmani Grandal, who is at an 866, and that's really a great outcome of his fantastic on-base percentage. He has 8 walks already in 7 games, but his batting average is only 211. You don't expect Yasmani to hit 300, but he usually does do better than 211. Normally, you would think Jose Abreu would be here. He's under 700 right now. Luis is around 700. Adam Eaton is very close. He's at 789. Yohan Moncada is only at 588. Nick Madrigal is off to a slow start. He's only hitting 241, which is like 100 points low for Nick Madrigal. One person that should absolutely be getting some more playing time is Andrew Vaughn. He's only been able to log 14 at-bats so far. He does have 2 hits, one of which is a double. And I've been very impressed by the fact that he has 5 walks already in his short career against 6 strikeouts. The reason I bring these up, these are bad numbers for the most part, bad numbers to bring up. But why is this optimistic? It's because you know Jose Abreu is going to have an on-base plus slugging well over 850. Luis has the potential to do that as well. And of course, many of us believe Moncada is going to, at least going back to his 2019 numbers, these are guys that are going to hit. And as long as the pitching can hold off and continue doing what they're doing, the White Sox should be in great position. The games that they're losing, they're not losing by much. The games they're winning by a lot. So if we can just get those bats to come around a little bit, I think the White Sox are going to be in really good shape. So last question that we will ask each and every week, and I will answer it live here. And I still have to think about it a little bit too. But who is your pick to click for the next week? Nobody has been hitting great other than Yermin. And yes, you can still pick him. I want to try to find the player that is about to break out. Adam Eaton hit a clutch 2-run home run yesterday. We have seen good things from a lot of people. Is Nick Madrigal going to finally come through. He's been elevating the ball more than I expect him to, and that has been leading to fly ball outs to the outfield. Oddly enough, with most batters, you're trying to get them to get their launch angle to go up. For Nick, we know if he hits it on the ground and hits it through the infield, he's doing his job. Luis is doing all right. Sometimes he looks really good at the plate, and sometimes he doesn't. Yeah, he does have 12 strikeouts, second most on the team behind Jose Abreu. And of course, there's Jose. Looking at the players, I still don't exactly know who I want to pick. I think Zach Collins, as long as he gets the playing time, he's going to do all right. I think he could come out of it. Andrew Vaughn, of course, he's a guy that has such unlimited potential. If he starts to hit, he's going to force himself into the lineup, and he will remain there and could be a good spark plug for this team. Adam Eaton is one of the most professional hitters on this team. Do I go with Luis or Adam? I'm going with Luis. La Pantera, he is going to patrol the outfield and hit balls over it. My pick to click for this coming week will be Luis. So put in the comments below who you think will be your pick to click for this next week, the next 7 days. At the end of this week, we will look at who was the best White Sox hitter from the last week, and we'll see who guessed right. But until I see you next time, play ball and go Sox.